You're not allowed to question. You know they're up to some kind of fuckery, right? So if you're not, and by the way, you know how they took the term conspiracy and they made it toxic because of the JFK assassination. The CIA, if you had a theory about how that happened, you were called a conspiracy theorist. Even though people are charged in court every day from coast to coast with criminal conspiracy, if you say somebody else is doing a criminal conspiracy, they call you a kook. You're a tinfoil hat nut. Just like they took the term truth, people who wanted to get the truth about 9/11, and they called them truthers.
That kind of destruction is even more than a big plane, because you're talking about taking out steel, the heaviest caliber steel that was used on a building. I mean, these buildings were rock solid, and it's just an amazing thing. This country is different today.
So here is a first responder, Kevin McPadden, and here's what he said he heard that day.
The Red Cross rep was like, he goes over and he says, well, you got to stay behind this line because they're thinking about bringing the building down. They didn't say what building. They just said bringing a building down. So we're behind this line because they're thinking about bringing the building down. They didn't say what building. They just said bringing a building down. We'll take their word for it. We'll stay behind the line. And he went over and he talked to one of the, through all the commotion, he goes over and he asked one of the Red Cross, or one of the firefighters, what was going on. I don't know if he got an answer or not. He came back over with his hand over the radio, and what sounded like a countdown. And at the last few seconds, he took his hand off, and you heard 3, 2, 1, and he was just saying, just run for your life, just run for your life. Hand over the radio, and what sounded like a countdown. And at the last few seconds, he took his hand off, and you heard 3, 2, 1, and he was just saying, just run for your life, just run for your life. And then it was like another 2, 3 seconds, you heard explosions, like boom. There's like a distinct sound. It's not like when compression, like boom, 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 like floors that were dropping and collapsing. This was a boom, and like you felt a rumble in the ground, like almost like you wanted to grab onto something. Boom, 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 like floors that were dropping and collapsing. This was a boom, and like you felt a rumble in the ground, like almost like you wanted to grab onto something. That, to me, I knew that was an explosion. There was no doubt in my mind.
So on that day at 9/11, 3 planes into their own footprint. Never happened. So on that day at 9/11, 3 planes, 2 planes knocked down 3 steel buildings that fell into their own footprint. Never happened before, never happened since. And it all happened on one day. Isn't that amazing? And I just wanted to play this for you. This is a video of Donald Trump talking on 9/11. Now let's remember, this guy was the president of the United States. The deep state has tried to kill him. The deep state did Russiagate. They don't want him talking or telling and this is why, because the deep state has tried to kill him. The deep state did Russiagate. They don't want him talking or telling and this is why, because he tells the truth. Have that. Well, listen to what he said on 9/11 about the World Trade Center. Watch this.
So the World Trade Center was always known as a very, very strong building. Don't forget, that took a big bomb in the basement. Now, the basement is the most vulnerable place because that's your foundation. And it withstood that. And I got to see that area about 3 or 4 days after it took place because one of my structural engineers actually took me for a tour because he did the building. And I said, I can't believe it. The building was standing solid and half of the columns were blown out. I mean, so this was an unbelievably powerful building. If you know anything about structure, it was one of the first buildings that was built from the outside. The steel, the reason the World Trade Center had such narrow windows is that in between all the windows, you had the steel on the outside. So you had the steel on the outside of the building. That's why when I first looked, and you had big, heavy I-beams, when I first looked at it, I couldn't believe it because there was a hole in the steel. And this is steel that was, you remember the width of the windows in the World Trade Center, folks. I think you know, if you were ever up there, they were quite narrow. And in between was this heavy steel. I said, how could a plane, even a 767 or 747 or whatever it might have been, how could it possibly go through the steel? I happen to think that they had not only a plane, but they had bombs that exploded almost simultaneously, because I just can't imagine anything being able to go through that wall. Most buildings are built with the steel is on the inside around the elevator shaft. This one was built from the outside, which is the strongest structure you can have, and it was almost just like a can of soup.
You know, Donald, we were looking at pictures all morning long of that plane coming into building number 2, and when you see that approach the far side, and then all of a sudden, within a matter of a millisecond, the explosion pops out the other side.
Right. I just think that it was a plane with more than just fuel. I think, obviously, they were very big planes. They were going very rapidly, because I was also watching where the plane seemed to be not only going fast, it seemed to be coming down into the building. So it was getting the speed from going downhill, so to speak. It just seemed to me that to do that kind of destruction is even more than a big plane, because you're talking about taking out steel, the heaviest caliber steel that was used on a building. I mean, these buildings were rock solid. And, it's just an amazing thing. This country is different today.
So here is a first responder